Power Rangers SPD aired in 2005 and takes place in the far-off future of 2025. So did they get anything right, or is this entirely off base? And more importantly, how does the show hold up almost 20 years later? Today, we're watching Power Rangers Space Patrol Delta.
Power Rangers SPD, Power Rangers to the rescue, go SPD!
Episode 1 begins with one of the best intros in the franchise history. Spoilers if I ever make a top 10 Power Rangers theme song video, it's like this and Jungle Fury are probably going to be my two favorites. We open on the planet Alondria being destroyed by an alien invasion, and we also discover that Earth is now a safe haven where humans and aliens live in harmony after the events of Power Rangers Cosmic Fury, a fact that was retroactively added to the canon 18 years after the show originally came out. So it's really up to you if you want to include that detail. The narrator makes a point to mention that Space Patrol Delta is an organization created to deal with the freshly immigrated alien population. We see 3 SPD cadets run through a training session where we're introduced to Syd, Sky, and Bridge, and they seem to be doing pretty okay.
Perp at 2 o'clock. That's 9 o'clock, Syd.
Got it.
All things considered. Syd's your typical valley girl and can turn her hand into the same material that she's touching. Bridge is neurotic. A lot of people claim him to be autism coded. That's a subject that I do not have the wherewithal to touch, so we're just gonna leave that there. But he has the ability to sense people's aura, and Sky can summon energy shields and is a bigot, making him a perfect candidate for the police force. Listen, I love SPD. I grew up with it. It's one of my top 5 favorite Power Ranger seasons. But it's gonna be hard for me to get through this video without showing my political bias, at least a little bit. So I'm sorry in advance. After a successful training session, Bridge long-windedly asks Kat, who's head of research and development at SPD, when they'll be ready to receive their morphers, given how A Squad already have theirs, and they're next in line since they're ranked B Squad. She claims that it's up to Commander Krugar, and we're also introduced to Boom, who is played by Kelson Henderson. If you saw my video on Dino Thunder, you'll know why I love this fool so much. But to put it briefly, Kelson Henderson has portrayed so many beloved characters from the show, Boom being the most popular. In the next scene, we're introduced to Commander Krugar, who behind the giant furry helmet is portrayed by one of my other favorite Power Rangers actors, John Tui. He's made aware of the situation with Alondria, prompting him to send out A Squad for last-minute training. The B Squad trio run into them, and Bridge notes that their aura is off, which I have to agree. The A Squad suits are lame, even if they reuse the in-space helmets. They have negative aura. Krugar notes that B Squad is now expected to step it up with the growing responsibilities thrusted upon A Squad, and sends them on their first mission, catch the Parkington Market thieves, where they run into a man and woman who also have special powers. Their names are Jack, who's able to phase through objects, and Z, who can clone herself. The two have grown up together and have been living on the streets for some time now. They're Robin Hood-like characters, stealing from vendors in Parkington Market and handing off their earnings to the poor, including Babu, who must have fallen on hard times after Rita laid him off. Regardless of their selfless actions, Z still yearns for more, which she explains to us in a shitty New York accent.
And brother, after 5 years of doing this, I say we change careers.
I'm really not sure what part of the Northeast she's trying to imitate here. I just thank God that this is like one of the only 2 times she does this in the show. She gets further annoyed when Jack offers the coat off his back to this old lady, which I'm really not sure why she's mad at him for this, but it's a moment that really shows off the type of person Jack is. He agrees to let her go do her own thing, but only after the 2 stage one more heist. While there, they're given an item that the scary alien from earlier in the episode is looking for, which they proceed to throw in the trash the following day. The B Squad trio are reamed out by Commander Krugar for underestimating their opponents and bickering too much with each other. He pulls Sky aside, asking why he wants to be the Red Ranger so badly, and he explains how his dad was Red and wants to follow in his footsteps. Krugar then asks how Sky would respond if he were to appoint Syd as Red, and Sky comes back with,
"Sir, she's a girl."
Yeah, Sky's a huge piece of shit. He's super unlikable in the first few episodes. I'm not gonna beat his character up too much for this, considering that's kind of the point. But at least Connor and Dino Thunder had the excuse of being a child. The next day, B Squad is sent out on their second mission, which is to finish their job from yesterday, where they're gifted morphers in preparation. Upon finding Jack and Z, their encounter is interrupted by a group of aliens, and we're left off on our first cliffhanger. The next episode begins with a trio surrounded by robots. They decide now is the best time to bust out their new morphers, and Sky is disappointed with the fact that he isn't red. I really like that they saved the morph for the second episode. I think Dino Thunder did the same thing in their pilot. It's really cool to pace out the reveal like that though. Jack and Z flee but feel bad for leaving them outnumbered, so they return to the battlefield to help out. Afterwards, they're immediately under arrest, but Krugar intervenes in the situation. Upon returning, he sympathizes with Jack and Z's struggle and sees great potential in them, leading to him offering them an ultimatum. They can stay in jail or complete their sentence by becoming Power Rangers and acting as public servants. Z immediately accepts the invitation, Krugar of course assigning her to B Squad, which Sky takes issue with. Rick, their robot dog companion, notices Jack attempting to escape, and he ends up having another heart-to-heart with Z, who explains how this is their opportunity to finally do something bigger. Krugar summons B Squad to debrief what happened during the case, but Sky first has to ask why he wasn't made red.
Seems there was a mistake.
There is no mistake.
They explain how they were attacked by robotic foot soldiers, leading Krugar to come to the conclusion that they were cryobots sent by Grum. The team believes that they must be looking for something, and Z remembers the item they threw out in the last episode. Upon retrieving it, she leads the team to her informant, Piggy, who's kind of like Oscar the Grouch if he listened to Run DMC and had a congestion problem. He explains that this is a proton accelerator. Pretty sure they're just putting a bunch of scientific words together to make it sound cool. They're interrupted by cryobots again, and during the battle, we see Piggy stealing the accelerator in the background. Jack is finally able to break free, but not for long as he runs into Boom, who asks if he's one of the new recruits, but Jack explains that he's turned the offer down. This shocks Boom as he always dreamed of being a Power Ranger, but flunked out of the academy. Thanks to Krugar though, he's landed a job in R&D as a product tester, and he's proud to contribute to SPD, even if he's not a Ranger. I really love Boom, and I like how this moment nails the message that you don't have to be a Power Ranger to save the world. Everyone's contribution to SPD is needed for the Rangers to do what they do. This moment, along with Jack noticing Z in danger, prompts him to join the battle. In honestly one of the most iconic scenes of my childhood, we witness Jack run in from afar and morph into the SPD Red Ranger.
You gotta be kidding me!
After this, we then see Piggy gifting the accelerator he stole to Emperor Grum, and the episode ends with Krugar congratulating the Rangers on a job well done, though they failed to retrieve the accelerator, and warns them of the battle ahead, claiming that they may not be the perfect team now, but they are on the path to become an incredible fighting force. I like how the Rangers aren't immediately great at their job here and are seen messing up. Even in just these first 2 episodes, the Rangers need to learn how to work together rather than just immediately being the best to ever do it off rip, highlighted in how they're B Squad and not A. This is something I feel that later seasons of the show just don't really do as well. Rangers of the Neo Saban era are immediately best friends and depicted as perfect examples of Power Rangers in literally episode 1. As per usual, we're about 2 episodes deep, so this is your opportunity to stop the video and come back if you want to go watch the series before continuing. It's on YouTube, which you should obviously know how to navigate if you're watching this video, unless this has been uploaded to one of those TikTok accounts stealing my videos. If you want to make sure that you're supporting the real Christian Antoine, feel free to support me on Patreon. I'll be newly unemployed next year, so I really appreciate it. There you can find monthly video updates about my mental health, as well as monthly reactions to different Toku movies with my friends. All that and more for only $5 a month. I also want to know that if you want to watch the episodes on YouTube, I've noticed that like the first 10 or so are sped up to like a very marginal degree. You really wouldn't notice it if the Rangers didn't sound so high-pitched. I recommend lowering the speed to about 0.90 or 0.95, whichever feels more accurate to you. Before we continue, as stated earlier in the video, I wanted to look at how accurate SPD is to depicting the year of our Lord 2025. And since this video is coming out at the end of December, I wanted to introduce you to our new and improved list. Making a return from the Dino Thunder video, we'll be using this to tally up how accurate SPD's predictions are, and we'll be adding and deducting points as we go throughout the series. I do want to note that I don't plan on deducting points for the Morphers or the Megazords or anything like that, considering that we are watching a show called Power Rangers. And before we move forward, I do also want to note that the list is strictly here for the sake of fun and is not meant to be an actual critique of the series. Most of the entries on here are for comedic purposes. I really wish I didn't have to make that disclaimer, but I can see myself getting death threats for some of these because some of you are actually insane. So this is the only time I'm going to say this. This is a joke. If you get annoyed with anything on the list, understand that it's probably there as a joke. All right, let's continue. I already have a few things I'm going to add just based off the first 2 episodes. The first being vertical guns. That is automatically points deducted. This is obviously something meant to give the show this unique vibe, but it's also not something that exists and has just terrible form factor, considering how the recoil from this would absolutely obliterate your elbow. Second up is the VR training room. I had a hard time figuring out if I was going to add or reduce points for this. Probably the latter. When I was visiting Atlanta for Ranger Stop this year, I ended up going to one of these like VR places that put you in a room with a bunch of sensors and stuff to make you feel like you're in the video game you're playing. But they first make you strap into like a bunch of gloves and like anklets and put on a vest, and is also not as realistic feeling as this is. So that's going to be our second deduction. Our third deduction will be how we don't have any aliens on Earth today. Maybe there actually are, but it's not public knowledge like it is in this season. Number 4 is going to be the judgment scanner. The closest thing we have to this is a polygraph examination, also called a lie detector test, which is not actually administrable in a court of law, and thusly is not sustainable evidence to convict someone of a crime. Which leads me to number 5, we can't put people in cards. Though there are currently efforts to upload our consciousness to the cloud, which you could consider to be close to this, though I don't imagine them having this form factor. Things may seem bleak now, but let's add our first 2 points to the list, the first of which being bigotry, and the second being that poverty still exists. I'm kind of treating these like jokes, because they are all jokes, but some TV shows like to depict the future as being a sort of utopia that has evolved past these problems. But these are still issues plaguing us today just as much as they did in 2005. We move on to episode 3, Confronted, where the Rangers are on a stakeout, waiting for directions from squad leader. Sky asks for permission to proceed several times, but without a response, Bridge, Z, and Syd decide to move forward without it. Meanwhile, Jack and Sky are left butting heads, Jack being upset that squad leader never responded, not knowing that this is in fact him. Grum is baiting out Krugar's best and brightest with an attack on the Helix Nebula, sending out A Squad and leaving B Squad to defend the planet with Jack as their leader.
And where is he?
Jack has another conversation with Boom where he vents about not wanting all this responsibility. I really like their friendship in the beginning of the series here. It's kind of cute, but Boom explains how the Red Ranger is the best position to be as he gets to boss around the other Rangers and cadets. And the entire rest of this episode is Jack doing exactly that, abusing his power, having the recruits cook for him and do his laundry, while he sends his teammates on the infamous Mud Run obstacle course, of course leading to more tension between him and Sky.
You may be wearing red, but you're not a leader.
At one point, Krugar finds him slacking and reading a comic book, which I'm going to add to the list, because if this actually was 2025, he would be DMing inappropriate Instagram reels to his friends right now. We also see Z using wired headphones at one point, which is also going on the list. But after witnessing Jack's behavior...
Don't forget, sir, you promised to go over those close contact defensive drills with me later?
I know Kruger's right here, but I didn't know Jack was such a dog. Krugar asks B Squad if they're comfortable with him leading the team, where he receives a resounding no. Bridge attempts to soften the blow with a microaggression.
Did I ever tell you that I really like your dreads?
Which I'm actually going to be adding points to the show's credit, because white people are still commenting on black hair to this day, so it's still true to life. Really cool that these are the things that they've gotten right so far. Jack is then revoked of his ranger duties, and Grum decides to attack Earth, knowing that A Squad has been sent to the Helix Nebula. This causes the Rangers to be dispatched to the Zord Bay for the first time. Jack grows frustrated not being able to help his team.
Where is it that you belong, cadet?
With my team, sir. I should be leading them.
And learns the lesson that a true leader should be out in the battlefield alongside them. So he's able to correct his mistakes, leading the Rangers to victory. And the episode ends with Jack having to do the mud run to atone for his mistakes. In this episode, we're also introduced to Broodwing, who seems to be Grum's weapon dealer, and this 12-year-old girl he just lets chill on the ship named Mora, who draws monsters for Grum's army. This is a great character episode for Jack. Similar to episode 3 of the last series, we needed a moment like this at the beginning of the show to set up the arc for our Red Ranger, so I can really appreciate this. Also, I have to talk about the Megazord. It's pretty cool. Not necessarily one of my favorites. I don't know why, but I always found the Blue Zord to be off-putting with the shape of its wings. But I really like the sirens and light-up effects that also carry over to the toy. Not mine though, mine's broken, so I can't show you. And I know I haven't talked about the suits yet either. Honestly, they're okay. The core 5 are pretty decent, but again, I don't really love them. I think the other suits in this show are much better, including the power-ups, except for the A-Squad suits, which just feel cheap and lazy, though they really aren't as bad as like the Dark Rangers from season 2, so I can't really hate them. In the next episode, the Rangers are playing a game with this light ball. It's going on the list. And Sky rejects playing with everyone else, believing they should be focused more on their mission. And this episode is about how Sky refuses to engage with the rest of the team, and how him resenting Jack being red is holding everyone back. We even get a callback from the last episode after the two failed to bring a monster in.
This coming from a guy who used to order us around like he was our boss?
At one point, Jack orders Sky to stand guard for a collection of diamonds, believing Grum wants to use them as an energy source, which Sky takes as a punishment for him being the superior Ranger.
He feels threatened by me, knows that I should have been the Red Ranger.
Not wanting to miss out on the action when the rest of the team is caught up in a monster battle, he abandons post, leading to Grum procuring the diamonds and Sky getting a talking to from Krugar. Afterwards, Sky returns to his room, admiring a picture of his father dressed as the Red Time Force Ranger. There's some debate as to what the lore implications are between Time Force and SPD, but instead of telling you what I think it's more fun if you just tell me what you think. So just tell me your headcanon in the comments. Jack takes this opportunity to have a heart-to-heart with Sky about the events of today. And I like how in this conversation, he takes accountability for what happened in the last episode, acknowledges that he doesn't feel fully prepared for this role that's been thrusted upon him, which makes him anxious, allowing him to level more with Sky and ask for his patience, wanting to work with him.
But I'm willing to work with you if you're willing to work with me.
It's a great scene for both characters, with all the reasons I just mentioned with Jack, and how we also get to see how much being a Ranger means to Sky. How after making such a massive mistake on the job, he holds this picture of his father, who is his personal hero. Also in this episode, we discover that A Squad has gone missing in action, leaving B Squad as Earth's only hope. Bridge and Jack also receive new bikes this episode, leading to the confirmation that Bridge is in fact circumcised.
Christmas came early this year.
Well, actually, Jack, I'm Jewish, but I suppose you could say Hanukkah came early.
I know a lot of people like to complain about the extensive number of explosions in this episode, but I'm not gonna lie, they're freaking sweet, dude. You can blame brain rot or whatever. I love watching this scene. This is my generation's Coco Melon. Episode 5 is most famous for giving us this iconic scene.
Want some? It's buttery.
We also discover that Bridge and Boom are into building PCs.
Boom and I are going to upgrade his computer with a super processor.
Which I'm actually going to add points on the list for this, considering how this is very much a common nerdy white boy hobby today. But I'm also going to remove points considering how they're getting tech tips from a magazine and not from a teenage boy on YouTube. The episode actually revolves around Syd getting annoyed with a robot dog, Rick, for a variety of reasons. But when he sacrifices himself to save her life, she begins to feel bad for how she treated him, prompting her to convince Bridge and Boom to help repair him, which they're successful in doing. She even uses his new upgrades to help investigate a case revolving this Nickelodeon slime monster, but it appears that the dog is faulty and may need to be deactivated. But Syd refuses to give up, and chooses to believe in him regardless of what everyone else thinks, leading to her digging up the evidence in the rain despite her clean girl personality. And it turns out Rick was right, and the episode ends with Syd finding a new appreciation for the dog, and it also shows her willingness to get down and dirty, regardless if she prefers not to. Also, now Rick is a cannon, which is undeniably tough. Definitely one of my favorite finisher cannons in the franchise. Also, I'm actually going to be adding points to the list for Rick. Robot police dogs have kind of been a thing for a while, but there's multiple reports of them being used in recent incidents, meaning that something like Rick isn't all that far off, though I don't imagine these dogs are able to sniff out aliens and turn into guns. But again, we're watching Power Rangers, so we just gotta let some things fly. In episode 6, A Squad is confirmed to still be missing. Jack offers B Squad to help search for them, but Krugar prefers them to stay on Earth and assigns them a new case regarding a bank robber.
Is he white or is he black?
Jesus Christ, Syd! I know she's a cop, but damn. This line sets up the theme for this episode about profiling people based on how they look, and focuses on Bridge advocating for a monster he believes to be innocent, despite the rest of the team thinking he's guilty. The episode is meant to highlight how, despite Bridge being an oddball, there are some methods to his madness.
I'd like to run down some of my own leads. Think my own thoughts in my own way.
Bridge ends up being correct, and the monster of the week was actually framed by Broodwing, who even causes him to grow massive at one point.
I'm as big as a tree!
Bro is way bigger than a tree, but whatever. It turns out that the actual suspect for the robberies is this girl Jack refuses to investigate.
Are you interested in a witness?
Beautiful witnesses, my department.
You dog! Of course, Bridge is able to figure this out well before anyone else. Being so confident, he decides to throw a fucking car at her. Love the confidence here. But like, imagine he was wrong. The episode ends with Jack having another heart-to-heart, this time with Bridge, where he of course apologizes for his actions. I like what this episode does to develop Bridge, as well as what it does to develop Jack's relationship with the team, and I also love what it does for world building. We've had other Power Ranger episodes about not judging a book by its cover, but given how this show is meant to have a society where humans and aliens live in harmony, it's important to portray that not all aliens are evil, and I'm thankful that they established this in the first few episodes. Episode 7, Sam Part 1, opens on a boy named Sam with special powers, able to make objects disappear and reappear, which makes him feel like an outcast of the orphanage where he lives. Also, at the beginning of the episode, Bridge comes to the realization all 5 Rangers on B Squad have special mutant powers, leading to the team speculating that all of them joining SPD must not be a coincidence. Grum's child friend Mora is able to exploit Sam's powers by giving him a friend in the form of the Monster of the Week, aiding in their diabolical plans. When a giant monster with the ability to make buildings disappear and reappear attacks the city, Z notes the child with him, assuming that he must also have special powers like them. Her assumptions are confirmed when she follows him home after the battle, and she encourages the rest of the team to help him out. Since he has powers, that means he has a lot in common with the team. Sky notes that their similarities begin and end with their powers, as the SPD Rangers use theirs for good and he doesn't. But Z defends him, saying that he's just a child and may not know the difference between right and wrong. She asks to investigate further, and Jack tags along with her. I really love the sense of compassion these two actors bring to the scene when dealing with the kid. It's especially great when you realize that these two were raised on the streets, ironically making them more sympathetic and well equipped to deal with this situation, and the episode ends on a cliffhanger when they're interrupted by a monster. Two quick things. When investigating an office building this episode, we find landlines and wired keyboards, which I was going to add to the list, but then I remembered that I currently work in an office with landlines and wired keyboards. But the bigger offender in this episode would happen to be these 5x4 monitors, and I can tell that they got the most top-of-the-line desktops for 2005 for this scene to make it believable that we're in the future, which is sad because that means the production team dropped a bag on nothing and might have contributed to us not getting an actor for the 6th this year. In part 2, the other 3 join Jack and Z for backup, and Mora convinces Sam to help her kidnap one of the SPD Rangers.
I'll be your best friend.
Z laments how Sam reminds her of herself as a kid, feeling like an outcast among her peers for having special powers. Even though she goes to school with this freakus, boy has no grounds to bully her looking like that. And she tells a story about how one day she was so embarrassed she ran away from school and was attacked by a dangerous man, but was saved by someone holding a spiral saber. Again, I could tell you the lore implications for this, but it's more fun to watch you spout off your silly little headcanon in the comments. Krugar tells Z that he was in fact the man with the spiral saber, and reveals all of the Rangers' parents used to be scientists for SPD, working alongside Kat to develop their morphers. Long-term exposure to the experiments had an effect on them, leading to their children being born with genetic abnormalities, meaning that it really was no mistake that these 5 were brought together. And it turns out that Sam's parents were also a part of this group of scientists. A lot of people hate this and better like the idea of the Rangers being randomly chosen. I personally don't give a shit. Actually makes me feel better about Krugar picking 2 random street youths to save the world. This discovery prompts the team to search for Sam, where Z ends up finding him, intentionally dressed down so she can relate to him more, and he's moved by her vow of friendship.
You really want to be my friend?
I already am.
The episode ends with him helping foil the plans of the Monster of the Week and joining SPD as a new recruit, leaving the orphanage and having clout for being close with the Rangers. And that is the last we ever see of this child. In episode 9, it's a slow day in the office. Krugar is out of town, leaving Jack in charge. Everyone's bored and tired, and there isn't a single phone in sight, which I would be adding to the list if we didn't already do that previously. Sky should be bullying kids on Twitter right now, but they're not bored for long as they discover a UFO crash landing on Earth. Upon arriving at the scene, they discover it to be an SPD ship piloted by Drew Herring, an old friend of Sky's from the Academy, who's played by Dwayne Cameron, who was also Ethan's bully in Dino Thunder, and more notably the Mercury Ranger from Operation Overdrive. The two have a really sweet friendship, having friendship bracelets and sharing stories about their time together, cluing the rest of the team into the idea of Sky actually having a fun side. There's a scene where they go to the shooting range, and there's these flying orb objects, along with this holographic monitor. I'm going to count both of these as points off of the list, but we have the opportunity to recover some points because in another scene we can see two cadets playing on an Oculus Rift. Weird to think that this is like a common thing now, but in 2005, VR was still considered to be this like super futuristic thing, so it's actually a really accurate prediction. Jack grows to be suspicious of Drew when he catches him wandering the halls of the command center at 4 in the morning looking for Krugar, which annoyed Sky, but he's justified considering how Drew is actually a scary looking alien. Krugar arrives back from his business trip, and I was geeking it when I noticed he came in on a hovering train. I make 2-hour-long videos about the Power Rangers, of course I was excited about the train, but I'm more excited that this is actually more points added to the list. See, I'm actually a huge fan of public transit, and I'm really disappointed that America doesn't invest more in its infrastructure, because China actually has a hovering train. For the uneducated, I encourage you to look up the maglev in Shanghai. It's probably the biggest reason I'm not proud to be an American anymore, besides the fascism. The team briefs Krugar on what's happened since he's left, and he gets shot. If Krugar was a right-wing podcaster, this would actually be points added. Everyone knows it's Drew, and he even confesses when Sky attempts to bring him in. Drew ends up shooting him in this encounter as well, but he's saved by his friendship bracelet. This leads to one of the most badass scenes in the show, where Sky and his friend end up having a good old-fashioned standoff, that of course ends with Sky winning. Like I said earlier, I really like what this episode does for Sky. It adds depth to his character, showing us more of his soft side, and I also like how this episode enforces why Krugar would pick Jack over him, as his intuition proved to be right in the situation. Sky was once again blinded by his emotions, unable to see the obvious signs of something off. He even admits at one point that Drew's story doesn't add up, but chooses to ignore it. In episode 10, a powerful alien, Sunuku, has escaped a prison on KO-35, the home planet of Andros from Power Rangers in space. Yeah, okay. It's also Syd's birthday, and she's gloating to the other Rangers about how her family always throws a massive celebration for her every year. But she's called to action as Jack picks her to join him on a stakeout to survey Sudoku's old science partner.
Commander Krugar failed to mention that Dr. Reyes would be so pretty.
You dog. This, of course, leads to the two butting heads, which escalates to Jack admitting that he doesn't understand why it's such a big deal, since he's never celebrated his birthday before, and doesn't even know when it is, causing Syd to feel like a jerk for making such a big fuss about hers in front of him. The episode ends with Jack apologizing for ruining her special day, and throwing a celebration for her with the rest of SPD. Uncharacteristically, Syd decides to share her special day with him, now deeming it to be his birthday too, which they now plan to celebrate together every year. I know I keep saying stuff like this, but this episode really does progress Syd's character forward, who up to this point was the only Ranger who didn't have a heart-to-heart convo with Jack yet. So in some ways, this capstones the first arc of the show for me, as now everyone has had a focus episode introducing their character's strength and weaknesses, as well as now developing a meaningful connection with Jack. Though it could be argued that Z's episode focused more on introducing Sam, but her and Jack have a pre-established relationship before the series started, which is even referenced in that episode, and they also tie Sam's arc into Z's backstory. We even get a little moment in this episode showing how far Sky's come along.
Have some fun.
My man. So now that the team is fully developed, the next episode does exactly what you would expect a Power Rangers series to do, and that's introduce a new Ranger into the mix. As we're now at episode 11, Shadow Part 1. This show loves two-parters. This is like our third one so far, and there's like 4 more after this. It opens on a flashback showing Krugar's first encounter with Grumm's army, a memory that still haunts him to this day as it wakes him up from his sleep, where he then admires a sword hung up behind his desk. This causes Krugar to be extra touchy the following day when dealing with the Rangers. And I like this one moment where Jack decides to stand up for his team.
Then I suggest you take your childish behavior elsewhere.
Wait a minute. I don't care who you are. You can't talk to us like that.
Again, it just really shows his leadership qualities. While this is happening, Grum has taken over the body of Mentor G from Power Rangers Samurai. Or it may not be Mentor G, but it's the same actor, so for the first time this episode, I'm gonna enforce my headcanon onto you. This is Mentor G, because that's just more fun, right? He's taken this form because he's visiting Earth this episode, with plans to send out the monster that destroyed Krugar's home planet, General Banog, who gives the Rangers a message for Krugar, inviting him to a duel, which he refuses. Kat demands Krugar tell the Rangers his backstory to explain why he's been so angry recently, and he reveals how this monster took his team away from him. He now blames himself for failing them, which is also what led to his entire species being wiped out. The Rangers are sent out again, and Kat protests Krugar for not telling them the full story, and encourages him to go out there with them, and she really gives it to him in this scene. It really shows the connection these characters have working together for so long, considering how she's so comfortable speaking to him like this.
Stubborn old dog.
She hands Krugar a box, and that angers him even more, leading to him kicking her out of the control room, where she then goes on a walk and encounters General Banog, which is our cliffhanger. In part 2, Boom awares the team of Kat's absence, and Krugar demands he do her job while she's gone. Thinking that he's being extra harsh on Boom, the Rangers finally stand up to Krugar. So now he decides to tell them why he's been extra irritable since General Banog arrived. This is because not only is he responsible for destroying Krugar's home planet, but he also took his wife, Insomnia. The Rangers try to comfort him, expressing how he was put in a difficult situation.
Knowing all those things does not stop my nightmares.
They receive another message from Banog, asking the Rangers to meet him in a quarry, threatening to detonate a belt strapped to Kat's waist if they don't come. He also sent out a monster while this is happening, hoping to split the team up. Jack offers himself to save Kat while the other Rangers pilot the Megazord, but Krugar rejects this plan. The Rangers protest this, but it's no use. We then see him admiring his sword from the beginning of the episode once they leave, and he retrieves the box Kat handed him and arrives to the quarry alone.
I am here, General Banog.
He morphs into the Shadow Ranger, my second favorite suit in this show. I like how the chest piece can be interpreted as 100 or 00, depending on how you look at it. I've seen a lot of people argue over whether to categorize this as a Black Ranger or if the Shadow Ranger is entirely a different color of its own. Once again, you can decide. More interestingly, there's a lot of debate around whether or not this is the team's 6th Ranger, which I'm going to comment on considering how the other guy in this argument has a giant Roman numeral 6 on his chest. Not to get ahead of ourselves, but I think numbers-wise, Omega is like the definitive 6th. That being said, I categorize Shadow Ranger in the category of Mentor Rangers, that being characters that are introduced alongside the core team that take a mentorship role. For instance, you could think of Dr. O in Dino Thunder, Mystic Force White, RJ from Jungle Fury, and I'd even consider Sentinel Knight or Kendall from Dino Charge to be in this category. Banog challenges Krugar to defeat 100 foot soldiers before fighting him, which makes for one of the most memorable moments, perhaps in my entire childhood, outside of my dad dying. Upon confronting Banog, he's able to get revenge for his fallen comrades and charge him guilty for destroying multiple planets. But when it comes to the charge of killing his wife...
What?
Regardless, justice is served, and the episode ends with the Rangers celebrating a job well done at Piggy's restaurant. Oh, I forgot to mention the B story in this two-parter is about Piggy winning the lottery and opening a restaurant, where he serves literal shit on a plate.
Enjoy! It's my best gutter one!
In episode 13, the Rangers are training against Krugar now that he can morph in the VR room, and after witnessing the strength of the Shadow Ranger, they collectively decide that this means that they can start slacking.
Shadow Ranger here. We're golden.
My man. But unfortunately, that doesn't last for long, as the evil is discovered in this episode. That's literally what it's called. The evil. Not the stone of evil or anything cute like that. It's just the evil, so it's what we're working with. And Krugar refuses to join them in battle when the Rangers call him for backup. He also denies them the ability to ask Kat for help in this case, prompting them to find Piggy for more answers. He tells them about the prophecy of the stone and sends them to a bookstore where they meet this dude.
I am the keeper.
So he's the keeper of an ancient space rock. I feel like we've seen this before. I expect to see essays in the comment section, because I think keepers are like a collective of people, right? According to the Dino Charge lore. I think like Heckle is also a keeper. So this guy, right? I'm probably wrong, but like I'd rather see what you have to say about this. So we're having fun this video. The monster eventually acquires the stone, taking a more powerful form. The Rangers continue to call Krugar for help, and he arrives at the scene, but refuses to get involved, watching the battle in silence without giving any feedback. Eventually, the Rangers get so fed up they just decide to do it themselves, and they win the day. Because this is a lesson Krugar is teaching them about relying on their own strength. Next up is Wired Part 1. Let's get the list stuff out of the way first. Bridge uses this microwave-looking thing with a touch screen that seems to be able to develop food out of thin air, which is definitely going to be points removed. The B Squad are training the D Squad team, and they notice one cadet, Sophie, doing particularly well when compared to the rest of them, leading to Bridge recommending her for a computer internship at the command center. But she starts acting sketchy, especially around technology, and it's super obvious that this is because she's a cyborg or a robot. I don't really know if this show understands what the difference is, but that's the twist in the end. I'm not even gonna like beat around the bush with it.
That's why all cyborgs belong in a scrap heap.
But he might as well have called her a clanker, what the fuck? Mora commissions a monster this episode to help with Grum's conquest after he states that this is her last chance to mess up. The monster plans on awakening this ancient robot called Goraidon, but he first needs a Series 1 processor hyper-intelligent encryptor. You can probably see where this is going. So he leads an assault to kidnap Sophie from the Delta base, and since the monsters have brought the battle to them, Doggie decides that now is the perfect time to engage the base's Delta crawler mode. The episode ends with the Rangers finding out that Sophie is a robot, and they kick her out of SPD for lying, and also for helping with some computer programming earlier in the episode without permission. They do this not knowing that the monster of the week is after her, leading to him kidnapping her as our cliffhanger. In part 2, the monster uses Sophie to awaken Goraidon, prompting the Rangers to deploy the Delta Command Megazord, piloted by the Shadow Ranger. Another one of my personal favorites. It's like if the Brachiozord in Dino Thunder actually was able to transform. I love the toy of this thing too. I always think it's really cool when little Zords can go inside of bigger Zords. The Rangers defeat the monster and save Sophie, learning a lesson about bigotry from Piggy of all people.
Why are they afraid of us? They're the monsters.
You're so ethnocentric. Don't you realize that to them, you're the monsters?
Honestly, this did need to be a two-parter. I'm sure the moral of the story here hit really hard in 2005, but the message of this episode is framed around machines having emotions and like being conscious and being like people too. And considering the issues that plague big 2025 with AI psychosis and people believing that they're dating chatbots, or ChatGPT literally telling kids to off themselves, I have a really hard time being like, yeah, machines are people too, you know what I mean? But if you look at this as an allegory for like racism or xenophobia, like it was really meant to be, it's actually a great episode.
Can't believe I'm prejudiced.
Oh, she did not go to a liberal arts school, huh? Not really sure how to count Sophie on the list. I think overall her inclusion to this show will be a deduction of points, because while we do have artificial intelligence and little servant robots, none of them can actually think for themselves like she can, and they most certainly cannot fight like this. The closest thing I've ever seen is the Neo home robot. Look up a tech demo for that if you ever have the time. This thing can't do shit, and it's hilarious. The only other thing of note here is that for something like the past 5 episodes, Grum has been threatening to turn Mora back into what she was before he found her, and like I said in the last episode, this was her last chance to show results. So at the end of this one, he turns her back into an adult. Not sure why she wanted to be a child to begin with, but now that she's a grown woman, that means she has to pay health insurance, because Haven't figured that out in 2025. And in the next episode, the Rangers are overwhelmed by a series of cryobots. Unsure how to get out of this situation, they're saved by the SPD Orange Ranger, sporting the same reused in-space helmets from A-Squad and a giant number 0 on his chest. But this is short-lived, as it turns out to be Boom daydreaming about being a Power Ranger again. He gets a letter from his parents saying that they'll be visiting SPD, which is cause for concern as he's been lying to them this whole time about being the team's commander and Orange Ranger. Thankfully, the Rangers are nice enough to help him keep up this front, which is actually really wholesome, but results in him giving a letter of resignation to Krugar after compromising a mission. And it's sad because once again, you could really tell how much this fool loved being a part of SPD. He ends up admitting to his parents that it's all been a lie and that he really just wanted to make them proud. Fortunately, while collecting his personal items from the lab, he volunteers to act as a crash dummy for a product needed to save Jack and Sky from the Monster of the Week. And thanks to his bravery, he ends up saving the day and not having to resign. I feel like this episode is a big reason why Boom is such a fan favorite character. Like, this dude loves his job and you can see how badly he wants his parents' approval. Not to mention, he's like all of us, man. A little kid dreaming of being like his favorite superheroes. It's also another episode that shows that no job at SPD is unnecessary. Everyone is needed to keep the planet safe, which is a pretty big theme for the show, and for those reasons, this is probably one of my favorite episodes this season. In this episode, we get holographic letters, jetpacks, and laptops that can teleport people, all things that will act as deductions on the list. I find it really funny how old shows depict the future as people getting delivered little devices that contain holographic messages inside. Like, this dude wouldn't get a text on Facebook today. But yeah, man, this is one of the best episodes of the season. In episode 17, Jack finds Sky working after hours for fun and refusing to play with Rick. And that's no joke. Sky is a company man. He's really about this shit. The Monster of the Week ends up swapping bodies with Sky in an attempt to take over the Delta base, leading to a series of misunderstandings. And this great indoor fight scene between Shadow Ranger and the Monster of the Week disguised as the Blue Ranger. There's this one point where the monster shoots Rick. And I know I keep mentioning how I don't have empathy for robots, but something about the dog flailing over like this, it really got me. And it's actually thanks to Rick this episode that Sky is able to get back into his body, as Jack throws a ball testing whether to see Rick will try to play fetch with Sky or the monster. Which again, as I said previously, what if Rick is wrong? Like, this confirms nothing. And this is also insane when you consider that Bridge has the ability to read people's aura, and is increasingly interesting when you also realize that the next episode has a B-plot about him being able to read minds. I do have something to add to the list, as there's one moment where Sky is reflecting on the situation.
I'm a wanted criminal to be deleted on sight.
And I want to highlight the choice of the word deletion here. I know that he's just saying this because for whatever reason, Power Rangers can't say kill or die or what have you. But this really is an interesting concept in modern entomology, where because of online censorship, especially with TikTok, we now say phrases like self-delete when referring to self-harm, or PDF file when referring to island-trotting presidents. And weirdly enough, I've seen this verbiage bleed into offline spaces as well, and for this reason, that's points added to the list. In episode 18, Jack is having a sparring session with Krugar and blames his loss on not having a sword like the Shadow Saber, leading to him learning a lesson about arrogance.
Your arrogance is blinding, as you believing that it is the sword that makes the difference.
Also in this episode, we learn about an alien that crash landed in Japan centuries ago that learned the art of the samurai from the Shiba clan. Alright, we've gone too far. That's stupid. Emperor Grum has sent this alien through a wormhole, bringing him to modern day Japan, meaning the Rangers have to leave New Tech City defenseless, allowing Grum to steal materials from the iridium plant, a metal that's often mixed with other metals to create stronger material. Jack convinces Krugar to gift him the Shadow Saber so he can duel the samurai. Jack wins in this exchange, and it's revealed to not actually be the Shadow Saber at the end of the episode, proving Krugar's point. And when the samurai monster leaves to go back to his time period, we can see a white orb exiting from the wormhole. We got 2 deductions this episode, including time travel and flying cars, though I know some of you may contest that we have flying cars today, but none of them are street legal, so I don't want to hear about it. Episode 19 opens on Krugar having more war flashbacks to the Battle of Sirius, where he first encountered Grum. And that's not me being hyperbolic. Like, there is a case to be made about Krugar actually suffering from PTSD, which is super interesting considering how we're talking about Power Rangers. Grum also happens to be reflecting on the events of this battle, remembering how it resulted in Krugar cutting off one of his horns, and he promises to get vengeance soon. The next day, the Delta base is paid a visit by Supreme Commander Birdie, who comes in on the Maglev, by the way, shout out to the Maglev, and is Doggie Krugar's direct boss. And you can tell it's a big event considering how the Rangers are wearing different outfits here. Shorty's even busted out the skirts for the occasion, and somehow all these outfits look even less flattering than the ones they normally wear. Sky's literally built like Captain America, but they insist in putting him in these cardboard boxes. Krugar and Birdie end up butting heads on how to lead the Rangers, with Birdie wanting to split them up more, but Krugar insists that their teamwork is their biggest strength, and this leads to him getting fired.
Patience? You were patient on Sirius.
Yo, what the fuck, Birdie? The next day, Birdie mistakenly splits the team, sending Jack, Sky, and Bridge to go fight Grum on their own. By the way, it's a bike episode. Give it up to the bike fights. Kamen Riders haven't done these in ages, so I'm happy to see someone's doing it. Grum states that he only wants the smoke with Krugar. Birdie, thinking he's hot shit, thinks he's able to 1v1 Grum, but of course gets the doo-doo kicked out of him, until he's saved by Krugar, who also gets a new bike this episode. Shout out to the bikes, man. I love bikes, and I love the Maglev. This is a big episode for my transportation enjoyers. And since Krugar is the only one capable of standing toe-to-toe with Grum, Birdie decides to admit his mistake and reinstate him as commander of the Delta base. And just before the episode ends, we see this white orb once again. In episode 20, the team is sent to battle, but the Delta base is unable to receive the satellite transmission of what's happening, meaning that it's up to the Rangers to give a detailed account of what's happened. So of course, the individual members give the story from their perspective, each telling it in a way that makes them sound better. Not only is this episode cool because of how it uses shifting perspective to show how everyone sees things a little differently, but it's also a really smart way to reuse the same 5 to 6 minutes of Sentai footage, and it's also really funny actually. Like how everyone notes that Bridge keeps miscounting the number of cryobots he's defeated, and then when it gets to his version of the story, he's like, I probably killed like 100 of these guys, I don't know. And while Boom doesn't make an appearance in this episode, Kelson Henderson is actually the voice of this hostage character that the Ranger Wiki has labeled as the Indian Guard, which means that someone monitoring the Ranger Wiki had to look at this guy and say, yeah, that's an Indian man. He's not called the Alien Guard or like the Shopkeeper or even a fucking Muppet or something. He's the Indian Guard. Okay. When the actual footage is made available for the group, they notice that the day was actually saved by the white ball of light from the past few episodes, leading us into episode 21, Messenger Part 1. Boom rushes into the command center claiming to have an urgent message for Krugar. He's built a radio that can tune into the radio waves from future broadcasts. Yeah, list, whatever. Using this, he's discovered a message from July 11th, 2040, claiming to be the 15th anniversary of SPD's collapse, when Grum took over Earth.
But today is July the 11th, 2025.
Here are the top headlines of that day. I tried really hard to make a joke connecting one of these to the fall of SPD, but this just ended with me getting sad looking at the news. Mora plans to get revenge on Z for messing up her scheme with Sam from a previous episode, so she calls in Shorty. That's not me making a tongue-in-cheek reference to an attractive woman. The monster's actual name is Shorty, which the Rangers are actually able to handle quite easily, until Shorty's older brother, Devastation, arrives, causing the Rangers to fall back and lose hope, ending on a cliffhanger.
Maybe the message was right. This is the end.
In part 2, Krugar taps in to help the Rangers, but there's still no match for Shorty and Devastation, which is actually the title of my fan follow-up for A Court of Thorns and Roses. A white motorcycle arrives out of nowhere, piloted by a white ranger, referring to himself as the Omega Ranger, my #1 favorite suit in this show. I really have an affinity for black or white rangers, given how clean those suits typically look, but I also love the choice of navy here over the black accents of the original suits. He saves the Rangers from defeat and destroys Shorty. Again, not a tongue-in-cheek reference about destroying Shorty. He actually kills him, and he turns into a ball of light before introducing himself to the Rangers. Boom notes that this ball has been following the team around since the time portal opened a few episodes ago in Samurai. Shortly after, the Omega Ranger properly introduces himself, saying that he was sent from the future to assist the Rangers in their fight on July 11th, citing a rule from the SPD handbook stating that no Rangers should sit idly by when other Rangers are in need. He states that the original B Squad is now defunct, given how his tech is much more advanced than theirs, and claims that he can handle everything on his own, pissing off the other Rangers. So Krugar gives him the opportunity to finish off Devastation on his own, and he has a hard time doing so. The other Rangers refuse to help him out, but when they're reminded of the rule mentioned earlier, they spring into action and save the day alongside this new Ranger, whose Zord makes a sweet motorcycle for the Delta Megazord, teaching the Omega Ranger the value of teamwork and reminding the Rangers to never give up on one another. And despite his mission being accomplished, the Omega Ranger has no way of going home to his timeline, so the team extends an invitation to allow him to stay at the Delta base and offer to show him around. But he's already familiar with the living quarters given how he grew up here, revealing that he is in fact Sam from the earlier two-parter, which is a really cool twist. But I'm conflicted on the execution here. I remember watching a panel back in the day where one of the producers of the show stated that it was a direct order from Disney that they weren't allowed to hire another actor for the Omega Ranger, despite the suit being all over the Sentai footage. He also claimed that Disney rejected the idea of Bridge and Z having a romance plotline because it was too inappropriate for kids or something. Even though I'm pretty sure I've seen a whole ass makeout session on Berserk or something like that. Anyways, Bridge and Z get married after this, that's my headcanon. But I don't know, it's really hard to like Sam considering how he doesn't emote. He talks in this weird announcer voice all the time, and it's just obvious that the suit is a stand-in for some dude in a booth somewhere. He just feels so removed from the rest of the cast. Like, the arc about him being a kid does help a bit, but I don't know, man, it just sucks that he doesn't get to do much after his introduction. In episode 23, the Rangers are jealous over the amount of time Krugar has been spending with Sam, until they aren't. Not much really happens this episode plot-wise. It kind of feels directionless, to be honest. Like, you assume this is going to lead to some big lesson with Sky, but he doesn't really learn anything. There's this brief couple of minutes where Syd is brainwashed, but that also doesn't really go anywhere. And there's this really long interrogation scene that's really fun, but also feels like it's just meant to extend the runtime. The Delta Megazord does combine with the Omega Max cycle this episode to form the Delta Max Megazord, which is pretty neat, and there is a moment where Broodwing begins to lose his patience with Grum taking advantage of him. In episode 24, Reflections, part 1, it's another slow day in the office, so the Rangers decide to enjoy it by playing frisbee outside.
Sky, are you actually enjoying yourself?
Their fun time is interrupted when they encounter a series of monsters they already faced in previous episodes, despite Kat confirming that they're still inside their containment cards. Her and Boom are seen working on Rick for the show's Battleizer, and she requests Jack's morpher to apply the upgrades in front of Sky, who's disappointed to find out that he won't be getting one as well.
No big deal.
I want to hold on this line too for a second, because though it is brief, it does show the progression of Sky so far. In previous episodes, he would have thrown a hissy fit over this, and while he may be disappointed here, he accepts the news and moves on, even admitting that Jack is worthy of being Red and for getting an upgrade.
And I still don't always agree with some of your methods, but you've done a good job as Red Ranger. This is not about you.
Jack exclaims that heroes come in all colors when Sky opens up to him again about how he always wanted to be the Red Ranger and feels as though he's a disappointment to his father since he isn't. So knowing that Sky is going through a rough time right now, what does Krugar decide to do? Well, assign him to interrogate the man that killed his father, of course. The monster, Mirlock, is able to travel through reflective surfaces, like in Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. Sky makes a deal with Murloc to give him something for his collection, for the information that the person pretending to be all these monsters is a shapeshifter named Slate, who the Rangers are close to convicting later in the episode, until Morgana steps in, cloning him, forcing the Rangers to take on all of their previous threats at once, which very quickly overwhelms the team. So Kat advises Jack that now is the best time to use his new Battleizer, equipping a chastity belt to assist in taking out the enemies. Objectively one of the worst suits in Power Rangers history. Thankfully, there is a mode that is significantly better, and is so good in fact that Toei pulled a reverse Uno on this one and used it for a Versus movie. Sky keeps his promise and returns to Mirlock, who claims to be a collector of stories, requesting Sky tell him about his worst memory, where he proceeds to detail the day his father was sent out on a mission and never came back. Truly a gut-wrenching story that Mirlock is able to use to provoke Sky into crying, allowing him to escape using the reflection of his tears. Disregarding the fact that this is the man that killed his father, I don't know why Krugar decided to send out the most emotional ranger on the team to interrogate Mirlock, especially when Bridge is right there. Again, he is significantly better at seeing through mind games and is also a great interrogator, as seen in a previous episode. In part 2, while cleaning the lab, Boom comes across Mirlock's file and discovers what happened between him and Sky's dad, and accidentally reveals it to him casually while passing Sky in the hallway. He confronts Krugar for not filling him in, and they proceed with an all-hands search for Mirlock, where he traps the Core 5 into this mirror dimension that looks not too dissimilar from Dragon Knight. No. Sam is the only one left, and he's able to set them free. Upon leaving the mirror dimension, Jack gifts Sky the red morpher so he can use the Battleizer to bring Mirlock in, knowing how important it is for him to get vengeance for his father. And for the first time in Sky's life, he finally morphs into the Red Ranger. Huge moment for him, and it's honestly the best moment in the show. The episode ends with Krugar apologizing for not briefing Sky fully, and Sky admitting that while it was great being red, heroes come in all colors. Also in this episode, Piggy is kidnapped and tortured by Grum for helping SPD and demands he swear loyalty to his invasion. Leading into episode 26, SWAT Part 1, the command center receives a distress signal from the base on Gamma 4, though the video cuts out before they can hear the full message. Prompting Krugar to ask the status on a new upgrade for the Rangers, Kat claims that she needs more time. In the other room, Krugar can hear the Rangers getting into petty arguments, something he figured that they would stop doing by now, considering they've been together for almost a year at this point. Kat ends up frying a part needed for the upgrade, and Z recommends they go to Piggy for a replacement, not knowing that he's working for Grum. He gives them a bad part that allows Piggy and his friends to hack into SPD and steal the schematics for the Rangers upgrade, ruining Kat's progress thus far and allowing his friends to use the SWAT mode on the Power Rangers. Even the chastity belt is no use for the power of SWAT mode. Krugar blames the Rangers bickering for why they weren't able to handle the threat and sends them to Sergeant Silverback for training, who I'm pretty sure is just John Toohey in a different mask. He has his own version of Rick that's a pit bull, and I just fucking adore this thing. Piggy's friends go rogue on him thanks to the new powers from SPD, so he asks Broodwing for help to get them back, who coerces him into going against Grum as neither of them like working for him. In part 2, Silverback demotes the Rangers to D Squad and takes away their morphers, where he then puts them in a training regimen so they can learn the power of teamwork. And not in a lame way either. They're put in an environment that causes each of the Rangers to come to this conclusion on their own through working together. I was expecting for them to like do a fight and then listen to like a corny speech from Sergeant Silverback, but they didn't do that, and this is actually a really cool, not corny way to do this. So Sergeant sends the Rangers back to Earth just in time to save Sam and Krugar, who have been kidnapped. Thankfully, Kat has just finished work on the new power-up SWAT mode, which I just adore. I think this makes the Dekaranger suits look so much better. It's really cool how they look like A-Squad a little bit too. Like, I know SWAT mode technically existed first in Dekaranger, and then A-Squad was created in the adaptation process, but it's neat that they kind of base those suits off this, if that makes sense. And now the Rangers operate as a well-oiled machine, working together better than they ever have before, with them responding to Jack's orders, splitting up effectively, all while communicating with one another over the headset. It's excellent. Towards the end of the episode, we see Piggy stealing back the schematics on what I can only consider to be a Sony UMD. And listen, I know PlayStation was pushing these things as the future of media storage back then, but I'm putting this on the list. But it evens out because at the end of the episode, we also see Z taking pictures on what I think is a Polaroid camera, which has made a comeback in recent years, so it's a net neutral. A whole lot of nothing happens in Robotpalooza. The wiki says they use footage from 4 different Dekaranger episodes in this one, and You could tell. They just go from Megazord fight to Megazord fight here, and they loosely tie it together with Bridge having premonition dreams about these 3 robots attacking the city, but then they go through a handful of encounters that just don't match up with what he was predicting.
Robots with that exact description just decimated Alpha 5.
Oh my god!
We do get the introduction to the SWAT Megazord here, which I absolutely love, but it just kind of happens. It's not even foreshadowed that Kat's working on anything in this episode, she just kind of gives it to them. That being said, I really like this Megazord. I feel like it being primarily black gives it a very different feel, contrasting the Delta Megazord being mostly white. The individual flyers are much cooler too, and fit the theme of the season better than the Delta Zords do. Plus, it can turn into a gun. That's always sick. In episode 29, Birdie calls the command center, keeping his promise from his first appearance, offering Kat a position at SPD headquarters, leaving Boom to take on his duties. Shifting employee responsibilities without hiring a proper replacement in 2025? That's added points on the list. We got a few others to add, actually, considering how they're working on a robot arm in the beginning of the episode. That's still experimental tech in the real world, but it's also treated that way here, so that's also points added. We also see Boom taking a Zoom call from Kat in this episode, and I've been debating adding points for a while about Kat representing the influx of cat girls in 2025, but she hisses in this episode, and I know that was an awakening for at least one of you. So I'm gonna add points for that as well, since I'm feeling generous. Kat, not loving her job at headquarters, decides to be nosy and see what B-Squad is up to on Earth. And she discovers the Rangers fighting a robot created by one of her old friends from tech school. She requests Birdie allow her clearance to go back to Earth to help the Rangers, since she now has personal insight on the case, and Birdie allows it, but first gifts her a temporary morpher.
Only work for 1 hour, so use it wisely.
That she uses to morph into Cat Ranger, which I'm going to count as the franchise's first Orange Ranger, mostly because Omega already has taken up the white slot, plus she's represented with this orange aura when she morphs and unmorphs, and I really like this suit too. I just wish we got to see it in more than just one episode. It looks especially good standing next to Shadow and Omega here. So Kat actually saves the day and convinces Birdie to let her stay at B-Squad after Boom begs her to come back. In episode 30, Bridge gets kidnapped while out on a mission, and I really appreciate how both Jack and Sky take accountability for this.
I take full responsibility, sir. I made the suggestion to Jack that we split up.
It's just another moment showing how far they've come. In previous episodes, they would have been bickering to one another about this. Of course, they find Bridge and eventually everything is fine, but towards the end of the episode, when Krugar is praising the Rangers for a job well done, Grum announces to himself,
"I will call upon them, and when I do, the Rangers will be destroyed from within."
Intermission. Throughout the video, you may have noticed a ton of monsters from previous series appearing in the background. Originally, I thought it would be cute to give each one its own segment, like we've done in other videos, but it very quickly became clear that that would be impossible, just given how many there are. So I wanted to dedicate this part of the video to pointing each one out for fun. In Power Rangers SPD episodes 2 and 3, you can see the Equations in the background. Shout out to my boys. In episode 1, you can see Babu from MMPR, as well as Univolt from Time Force episode 12. You can also see Teska from Lost Galaxy 22 in episode 1, as well as in episode 5. Kronwing from Time Force episode 20 is in episode 1, 11, and 12, and Izal from Time Force episode 9 is in episodes 2, 5, 12, and 16. Jade the Gladiator from Dino Thunder episode 20 makes an appearance in episode 2, and you can also find some Gatekeepers from the MMPR movie in episodes 3, 12, and 16. In episode 5, you can find Deviat from Lost Galaxy and Arachnor from Lightspeed Rescue episodes 32 through 35 in episode 9. The Blue Centurion and Cyclopter from Lightspeed Rescue 22 are seen as video game characters in episode 10, Cyclopter also being in episode 15. Camellia Khan from Time Force episode 23 is at Piggy's Restaurant in episodes 11, 12, and 16, and you can see Crocotoxis in episode 11. Dash from Time Force episode 21 is in episode 12, and the Tangas from MMPR season 3 are in episodes 12 and 15. And finally, in episode 16, you could see Iron Spike from Time Force episode 23. We also got some Beetleborg characters to mention, as you can see Mukin in episode 11 and El Scorpio in episode 26. Yeah, it's a short intermission this time, but I think that's fine. Episode 31, History. Broodwing has recovered the primary 3 Dino Gems from Onyx, a planet previously seen in Power Rangers in Space and Lost Galaxy. With the help of a scientist, he uses them to teleport the original trio of Dino Thunder Rangers to the year 2025. Previous to this, they were just reuniting at their 1-year high school anniversary. I've never heard of anything like that in real life. I can't even use Power Rangers logic here. Like, who the hell goes to a 1-year high school anniversary? The SPD Rangers pick up on the signal from the morphing grid, showing 3 additional Rangers in New Tech City, believing it's members from A Squad returning. They investigate to find Connor, Kira, and Ethan. Jack introduces himself and the team as the Power Rangers.
Wait a minute, you can't be the Power Rangers.
How many times do we need to have this conversation? This isn't the first time she's made this mistake.
Evil Power Rangers? How's that even possible?
She's literally been shown archive footage of Rangers before her, and she has shredded files containing the history of Rangers from other planets. What the fuck do you mean you're the only Power Rangers? The Dino Thunder Rangers of course want to help out SPD in battle, but they're discouraged from doing so, as the SPD team doesn't want to risk the teens getting hurt, which would end up disrupting the flow of history. Despite this, the trio continue to want to fight, a quality they've shown in previous episodes during their series. So when Grum sends out an all-out assault, Kat fixes their morphers and allows them to join the battle alongside the SPD Rangers. It's overall a pretty cool episode. I really enjoy seeing these guys a year later, literally both in the world of the show and as a viewer, speaking in terms of actually both when I was 5 and today, considering that we just made a video on Dino Thunder last year, in case you haven't seen it. It's pretty cool seeing them react to stuff from the future. It can actually be really funny at some parts, and there's some fun interactions between the characters, like Connor constantly hitting on Syd the whole episode. The Rangers wish to stay in the year 2025, but are sent back in time once again thanks to the power of the Dino Gems, which is technically a separate mode of time travel from the Wormhole method, but I'm not going to be including this on the list since it has to do with our Ranger powers technically, and not even like the SPD powers either. We would be digging into the Dino Thunder lore here, which would probably open up a whole other can of worms that would eventually lead to me talking about Slippery Shark again. But they have to get back to their lives in the modern day of 2005. As in the future 2025, Connor is known for creating a franchise of soccer camps, Ethan is a well-known software developer, creating programs even used by SPD, and Kira is a famous singer. So the future looks bright for our Rangers, even if they're sent back without their memories. Episodes 32 through 35 are all over the place in terms of their order in production, continuity, and in which they aired. I'm going to be going based off what the wiki says is next over the YouTube channel, because that's what I'm using as a resource for this video. That being said, feel free to watch in whatever order you like. Hell, I even have the episodes timestamped in the description, so you really can just click on whatever part you want to see next. So at this point, it's kind of a choose your own adventure novel. So up next, we will be covering Impact, which also has a segment recapping the events of the last episode we covered, with Broodwing teaming up with the scientist from before, Professor Cerebros. So I kind of feel like these two are meant to go together. It opens on Jack and Sky training, exemplifying how well the two work together and how far their relationship has come. Boom is wearing a camouflage outfit that lets him look like a monster, which is going on the list. Broodwing and Professor Cerebros come up with a plan to send out a robot to attack the city at the same time that they send out a meteor to collide with Earth. The Rangers at one point even go to Professor Cerebros for an expert's opinion on the situation, but become suspicious of him when Bridge reads his energy, leading to Jack and Sky employing the same tactic they developed while training earlier in the episode, again calling back to their development. And when it's time for one of the Rangers to volunteer for the meteor mission, both Jack and Sky raise their hands, each willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. But when Krugar picks Sky to go out instead, Jack ignores his orders and joins Sky on the mission anyways.
Sky would have done the same.
Those two are more alike than they care to admit.
They shoot the meteor at close range, but it's not enough to fully destroy it. So Jack makes the hard decision to send Sky back to Earth and fly directly into the meteor, sacrificing himself in the process.
We didn't always see eye to eye, but I respected you.
Sky really begins to grieve Jack here. It's one of the more emotionally intense scenes in all of Power Rangers, even outside of SPD. Just as he started to come around on Jack, he loses him, and realizes that despite their differences, he can still respect him. Thankfully, it's not the end for their relationship, as Jack arrives back on Earth after successfully destroying the meteor, allowing the other robots to hold the SWAT Megazord in gun mode, in a similar fashion to how Sentai teams normally finish off monsters with a big cannon. This is an amazing episode, fully developing the relationship we've been building throughout the entire season between Jack and Sky, with the two finally being able to work together and have a genuine friendship regardless of how different they were in the beginning. Having a story like this as a through line for this series has been incredible, especially considering the episodic nature Power Rangers tends to have. This show is very similar to its Sentai counterpart, but the differences that they've added here in SPD just make this one of the best story arcs in the entire franchise. At the end of the episode, Grum acquires the meteorite to mine it for its resources, and send a team of henchmen to unsuccessfully knock off Broodwing for being disloyal. In the episode titled Badge, Broodwing teams up with Krugar's old rival from back when he was in the academy. Old buddy had a thing for Doggie's wife back in the day, causing him to get too aggressive during one sparring match with him, leading to this guy getting kicked out of the academy. Now, to seek vengeance, he's stealing the badges off the Rangers' uniforms as a sign of disrespect for the organization, which is something I can actually get down with. Fuck the establishment. There's this really great bit of character acting here before Sam encounters him.
It's all clear on the west side, Chief. If he's looking for trouble, I can handle it.
And I know it doesn't seem like much, but as I've said before, Sam really doesn't feel like a person in most scenes. So this line read actually had me really thinking, like, do I actually like Sam? No, but it had me thinking that for a second. Speaking of a great character moment, Z has a few nice lines here when her and Jack are the last two Rangers standing.
Never a dull moment with you, Jack.
In some ways, this is another full circle moment for their relationship as well, though it's not treated as a critical point in the narrative to the same degree as Jack and Sky's last episode. And just as Krugar is about to get his vengeance for everything, his rival drops this bomb on him.
Isinia is alive!
Also in this episode, Morgana is turned back into a kid after successfully retrieving plutonium from a factory on Earth while the Rangers were preoccupied. I haven't mentioned the name change yet, but when she's an adult, all the characters refer to her as Morgana, but when she's a kid, they call her Mora. And the reason I haven't brought this up yet is because I think it's fucking stupid. It's not like I was originally named Christ and then everyone started calling me Christian when I turned 18. I really don't understand the point of this. She also steps into this room that Grum states she is explicitly not allowed in towards the end of the episode, foreshadowing what's to come and acting as a cliffhanger. In Insomnia, we pick up directly after the events of the last episode. Krugar is still hung up on the idea of Isinia potentially still being alive, and the Rangers just happen to be walking by as they hear him say this.
Well, I still haven't lost hope for the A Squad. If I hadn't have sent them off, maybe we'd have defeated Grum already.
That night, Jack is up late, unable to sleep, concerned that he's failed the team. Z is also awake and consoles him on how far the two have come. It's a clip show episode, but it's not the worst we've ever seen, to be honest. I like how it focuses primarily on the character arcs for each Ranger to show where they are now compared to the beginning of the series, since we're so close to the end of the show. As opposed to other shows we've talked about previously that just simply want to go over all the major story beats, just for the sake of recapping or kind of saving money, it feels like sometimes. We're joined by the rest of the Rangers as well. Sky is worried his constant bickering with Jack is the main reason the Rangers haven't been able to live up to the likes of A Squad yet, and once again, we go over a series of clips showing his progress. Bridges' segment follows how weird he's been, accompanied by clips of the Rangers yelling at him, but it also shows how, while his methods may be strange, they often point the team in the right direction. And Syd believes that her selfishness is the real reason the Rangers haven't defeated Grum yet. But once again, we see a compilation of all of the lessons she's learned throughout the season. The final portion of the episode goes over all of the materials Grum has stolen in the series, which lead the Rangers to the conclusion that he must be building something. They rush to tell Krugar, who reveals the second half of his conversation with Kat.
And if A Squad was that good, they would not have fallen into Grum's hands.
The episode ends with Mora seemingly brainwashed and swearing her allegiance to whatever this entity is inside of Grum's room, preparing us for the show's endgame. But first, we need to talk about Wormhole. This is the main offender when it comes to the debate as to how episodes 32 through 35 are laid out, as there seems to be some disagreement as to where the events of this episode fall. The YouTube channel places this episode right after the crossover with Dino Thunder, making it episode 32. And as I said before, I'm going based off of the wiki to help me write this script, so I'm going to count this as episode 35. And in all reality, I think the events of this episode definitely take place after Badge, since Mora is a child here, but before she was brainwashed at the end of Insomnia. That means that this would take place just in between the events of what we discussed last episode, since Insomnia picks up right after the last scene from Badge, essentially splitting Insomnia into 2 chunks, since she isn't brainwashed until the end of that episode, but is still a little girl somehow. So I guess I really would consider this to be episode 35, or maybe 34.5, if you want to be more accurate. It's really depending on whether you'd like to follow up Badge with a clip show or this team up, which, surprising to me, is the last traditional team up in the show's history. And when I say traditional team up, I'm talking about what you immediately think of when I say the word team up, where the characters from the last show come back to interact with the cast from the current running show. Team ups that occur after this opt to bring back an ensemble cast from a variety of different seasons, the only outlier being the Dino Charge Beast Morphers team up, which kinda doesn't count either, considering that neither of those teams are sequential of one another. Now, this episode may sound unnecessary considering we've already had a Dino Thunder team up this season, and hot take, it kind of is, which is surprising to me too, because I always thought Wormhole was the superior team up this season, but after rewatching history, I'm shocked to admit that I think it's just better. The characters are allowed to interact more, and it acts as a better epilogue and send-off to the Dino Thunder trio than this does, since in history the characters are technically a year older in that episode, allowing them to show all the development from Dino Thunder, and we get to learn about the bright futures they're set to have after their time as Rangers. And yeah, I know this one has the whole scene with the circle.
No one gets inside our circle!
Yeah, no one gets inside. It's badass, but the episode overall lacks the substance that I feel like history had, even if this one technically includes Tommy and Trent. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get JDF back for this episode, so instead we just get Jeffrey Perazzo doing his best JDF impression.
Time to take it to the next level!
Which explains how Tommy gets absolutely mogged by Krugar in every scene they share. That being said, Wormhole isn't bad at all, I just think the other one's better, and there are things I really do enjoy about this episode. I think that if you are going to have 2 crossover episodes, it's fun to have the Dino Thunder Rangers go into the future, and have the SPD Rangers go back in time in this one. I also like how they keep up the bit about Ethan being able to predict the future.
It's not ancient galactic history, but it could be.
And the fight scene in this episode is incredible, not only having the circle scene,
No one gets inside!
No one gets inside!
but also having a fight scene with the Sixths and Mentors, along with 2 stages of battleizers shown, and dual cannon action. It's pretty dope. I considered removing points for the memory wiping device used at the end of this episode, but if you were to ask the victims of MK Ultra, we may actually be able to do that. I once spoke to a guy who claimed to be a subject in the experiment. He also claimed to have taken a bullet to the throat that helped him become a better rapper. And that's not even like a joke. This is actually like a conversation I had with someone once. That being said, I'm going to leave points off the list entirely. We're not adding any, we're not removing any. Kind of afraid if I talk about this further because I just don't, yeah, I'm scared.
Hey, it's your boy, Sergeant Hooked on Heroes, here to help out Christian with this awesome video about Power Rangers SPD, one of the very best and one of the most goated seasons of Power Rangers. I'm sure he's talked in great excess detail about how awesome the show is, but I'm here right now to shine a little love on the team-up episodes. If you don't know, within the realm of Power Rangers, it's known that many seasons, not all, but many seasons will do a team-up episode. Normally we get a sort of a team-up where the previous team will come in to help the current season. In this case, it's Dino Thunder coming in to help SPD. And we get a little bit about what they're up to this point now, get an update on them, and then they're kind of supposed to mostly be there to kind of lift up the current team. Some kind of problem they're facing, kind of help them fix that problem, solve that problem, figure out a solution, whatever. And it usually works really well. It's cool to see the camaraderie, and of course, the morphs together are amazing. I really enjoy the team-ups we get with Dino Thunder and SPD. I think it's odd that we got 2, and that they both don't fully make sense of the timeline exactly, but I just feel like they could have just put all the budget they did for both into one. I'm going to talk about History first. History, a fantastic team-up episode. We get an update on Connor, Ethan, and Kira. Get to really understand where they're at. Kira is now a fully fledged singer. She has albums out and everything. Ethan is, doing his tech situation, and Connor actually is trying to start up his own soccer camp for kids. In the episode, they get their powers back. I won't explain exactly how. And at first, the SPD team doesn't want them to help so much. They think they're fossils, they call them at one point, I think Syd. But then eventually they kind of need their help. And they kind of say, hey, I know that we may not be that exact team, but they need our help. And I don't care if we don't have powers or not, we need to help them somehow. And so they're able to eventually transform and fight. And it's cool because, we just get the main trio. It would have been cool to have the trio and Dr. Oliver and Trent, but we at least get the main trio. So History is a pretty good one. Really great fights, really good matchups in the fights, really good civilian fights with the powers and whatnot, and a good setup and being able to see how far those Rangers have come, especially at the end when they do the epilogue talking about how Connor's soccer camps are all over the nation in 2025, that Kira's songs are all over the radio in 2025, and that some of the technology that Ethan develops is still being used to this day in SPD. So again, really cool connections to things that what they do with the updates. Now, Wormhole is cool. It's not a bad team up, and I don't dislike it exactly, but it's a little bit more messy. It seems to take place more during some part of normal Dino Thunder. It would seem the kids the Rangers are still in school. We don't see Tommy unmorphed. I guess at the time he wasn't available for filming, so they actually had Jeff Pratzo, who plays Dino Thunder White, do his best Tommy impression to play the character. I actually talked to him at a recent convention, Monroe Comic-Con, I think it was last year or the year before. And so he had actually, during a table raid, done an impersonation of Tommy, and Tommy was really mad how good he sounded. And so they decided to keep that around and keep that in their heads, the writers anyway, when they made the episode, to have him basically just voice Tommy. So we see Tommy fully morphed. Trent does morph with everybody else. Watch the episode though, because he morphs in a really weird way that I don't understand why he does. As you know, the normal team has their way of morphing, and he's just like, White Ranger, Dino Power. That's it. He does this really weird, different thing. It's really odd. It's like they were like gonna try to match it up with the rest of the team in transforming, but then they didn't really commit to it, but they did kinda. It's really odd. But it's a decent team up. We do get a really cool thing with the entire Dino Thunder team plus SPD and Omega and Shadow Ranger together, and the whole nobody gets inside meme that everybody knows about. But there are two really good, decent team ups. I think together they make an awesome team up. Separately, I think History's a bit above Wormhole, but I think Wormhole still is fun as far as team ups go. Just a lot more story and I think heart went into into History than Wormhole, in my opinion. But both are still very entertaining. Again, Christian, thank you so much for letting me be part of this video. I absolutely love the heck out of Power Rangers and of course SPD. Please keep watching the video, and hey, may the power protect you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much to Zach for volunteering to be in the video. I really appreciate being able to include my friends in fun ways. That being said, we're at the point in the video where it's time for you guys to vote on what you'd like to see next on the channel. And I have to say that you guys have surprised me almost every time we've done this. The first time I ran a poll was in the Dragonite video, where I was convinced Power Rangers Samurai was going to get picked, just because that's a very popular season for people to watch videos about people ragging about, but maybe that's an oversaturated topic, so I can understand that. Instead, you guys picked over-explaining 5-man. So in my mind, I was like, oh, okay, the streets yearn for more over-explaining Sentai, that rocks. And while a good portion of you did vote for Jack, you guys voted for the one option I mentioned in the last video that I didn't want to do. I literally said in the 5-man video that I'm not super excited about this video idea, and you guys still picked it anyways, and I find that so funny. Obviously, I'm happy with the way this video turned out, or at least how I think it's going to turn out based on the script I wrote and where we're at in filming and stuff. But I'm just I don't know why I don't know. But yeah, the first option is of course another over-explaining Sentai as Tokusou Snetai Turbo Ranger. A lot of you have pointed out that we've already covered Live Man and 5-man, so the only way to close the gap would be to talk about Turbo Ranger, which would round out this era of the show, and is honestly a topic that I'm very interested in doing. Another one that I'm very interested in doing is Kamen Rider 01. Now, listen to me. very closely when I say this. Do not pick this option if you want to watch a video about your favorite rider series and see me talk about how amazing it is. Because I really don't like 01. I think it portrays AI in a really problematic manner, and so kind of like how this episode touches on themes about how I perceive the state of technology today, a video on 01 would primarily be a critique of AI as well as how it is portrayed in Kamen Rider and really a lot of Toku. People like to claim that, we're going off on a tangent here, but a lot of people like to claim that different Toku shows portray AI as like villains and stuff, but really they don't at all. Like, Toei has made it very clear that they're very pro AI in a lot of ways. That being said, this would take me a very long time to do correctly, so if you want to see this immediately, this shit might take like 6 months. Entry number 3 is Power Rangers Zeo. I've kind of had a hankering to watch this season ever since we covered Alien Rangers, just with how well that series cues up the events of this one. And I don't know, I was surprised by how Alien Rangers kind of was more than just MMPR Season 3 Part 2. So I'm kind of interested in seeing how Zeo stacks up compared to my memory, since I always kind of considered that series to be MMPR Part 4. This next one is probably the most interesting on this list, and I'm excited to see how you guys react to it. As you guys know, I like to throw in wildcard options for these fourth ones that exist beyond just Sentai, Kamen Rider, Power Rangers, just as fun. But for some reason, I feel like this is one that people may actually consider picking this time. But I really hope that if you do, that actually means you want to watch this video, because I'm scared that covering this topic won't do well for the algorithm. So I need you guys to back me up on supporting this video if you pick it. And that is the 1982 Space Sheriff Gavin series. A lot of you know that Sentai is coming to an end and being replaced with a show called Super Space Sheriff Gavin Infinity under the Project Red umbrella. So that would mean that there is no time like the present to see what Space Sheriff Gavin is all about. Could be interesting, it could be not interesting, I don't know. It would be my first time ever watching a Metal Hero series in full, actually. So it could be a really cool video. To vote, just go to the YouTube community tab or in my Twitter below. That being said, thank you so much for watching to this point in the video. I hope that means that you're enjoying yourself. So with that in mind, if you don't mind, could you drop me a like and maybe hype the video? YouTube's promising that this is a feature that exists, but I have no clue how to hype videos. But if you have the ability to hype videos, if you could do that for me, that'd be really dope. And yeah, maybe subscribe too. If you don't feel like you want to do that quite yet, check out a few of my other videos and, you know, maybe we can revisit the topic later. Anyways, back to the show. Episode 36 opens with Bridge offering the team some toast.
It's really buttery.
And we find that Jack has decided to go on a walk to get away from SPD a little bit, where he finds a group of people loading up a truck of clothes and attempts to arrest them, but is surprised to find out that it's a girl who runs a company responsible for handing out clothes to the poor. So, missing his old gig and not wanting to miss out on a chance to mac on fine shit, Jack volunteers to help out.
Rain check?
And half the episode is about Jack wanting a life outside of SPD, causing him to miss a few calls, but ultimately still being able to get the job done, which eventually leads to a very tense conversation between Jack and Commander Krugar, where he actually stands his ground, not wanting his entire life to revolve around his Ranger duties. A very interesting place to take his character, considering how he never really wanted to be a Ranger to begin with. In the second half of this episode, Kat receives a distress signal, and Krugar dispatches the Rangers to investigate. They arrive in SWAT mode and carefully navigate the jungle, finding a ship that seems to have crash-landed some time ago. They blast through the doors to find the A-Squad Rangers, who seem to have been stranded on this planet since the beginning of the series. Once back on Earth, Krugar wants to debrief A-Squad on what they've missed, and dismisses B-Squad in a way they don't like.
B-Squad,
When was the last time Krugar called us B Squad?
Before leaving, Bridge decides to read A Squad's aura again like he did in the first episode, and comments that something still seems to be off. And we very quickly discover that there are some truths to his assumptions, as the episode ends with A Squad holding Krugar hostage once the Rangers leave the command center. Bringing us to the penultimate episode, Endings Part 1. A Squad has taken Krugar to Grum's base, claiming that they've decided to join the winning side, as Grum promised to allow them to rule alongside him once he's taken over the planet. They then challenge B Squad to a duel, and this is my favorite fight in the series, and I know I've said this a few times, but I really think this might be one of my favorite fights in all of Power Rangers. As one of their final conflicts, the Rangers have to now face the team that they have been compared to throughout the entire season, truly making this their last opportunity to actually prove themselves. And it's no easy feat, as they really get their asses handed to them at first. But when the team bands together, after this really sick helmetless scene, they begin to gain ground, now in SWAT mode, which, as I've alluded to previously, is what I consider to be the representation of the team being able to rely on each other and work as a unit. This forces the A Squad Rangers to retreat in their Megazord. And while this is happening, Broodwing has decided now is the best time to take over the Delta base, now that Krugar has been kidnapped and the Rangers are preoccupied, leaving Sam and a group of cadets to defend it. Unfortunately, it's too much, and Broodwing gets control of the command center, leading to the destruction of the Delta Megazord, since the Rangers now have to deal with that as well as A Squad's Megazord. But Bridge comes through with one final out-of-nowhere idea and brings the Rangers to this secret Zord Bay, where Kat had sent the SWAT flyers while the command center was under attack, allowing them to take on both the Delta base and the A Squad Rangers, showing once again that this mode really is the representation of the Rangers getting their act together and working as a team.
I'll never call you weird again. Thanks.
So the Rangers take down A Squad and regain control of the Delta base, containing Broodwing in the process. This leaves Grum as their last threat, and they have to act fast as he still has Krugar, and has revealed that Insomnia has been in his custody this entire time. So with no other options, the Rangers decide to trust Piggy, who leads them into a trap, ending the episode with all the Rangers being kidnapped by Grum. Before we move on to the final episode, I wanted to note the cell phone Jack is holding in this scene, where he has to cancel plans with his girlfriend, who's frustrated with him bailing on her and the charity for Ranger stuff. Yeah, that thing's going on the list. Shit, you're lucky I'm not taking off 2 points, to be honest. This is bad for even 2005 standards. And now we're at the final episode, which begins with all of the Rangers trapped in Grum's prison, and Krugar thinks that now is the best time to talk to Jack about leaving SPD, where he expresses his appreciation for him and understands that he may want to choose a different path once Grum is defeated. Meanwhile, Piggy is regretting his role in the Rangers kidnapping and asks for a sign if he did the right thing. And then his food truck explodes, so he decides to sneak onto Grum's ship, disguised as a cryobot, and save the Rangers from their prison. Meanwhile, on the base, spirits are low with Krugar and B Squad being kidnapped, but Boom gives this speech that's able to rally everyone together.
Even if all of you leave, I'm staying, because they would stay for me. We will probably lose, but I am not giving up without a fight.
Yeah, the copyright system had me fucking mangle that one. And I really appreciate that this show is able to give such a monumental moment for a character like this. Not only is this a heartwarming performance from Carson here, but it's also kind of full circle again, as he was originally the person who motivated Jack to fight in the beginning as well, and despite not being enough for the Academy, he is choosing to stay and fight against Grum's forces despite all odds, something that any Power Ranger would do in this situation, making this his sort of countdown to destruction moment where he embodies what it means to be a Ranger without ever actually inheriting powers. There's also this really good shot of the three main side characters here, and it goes so hard. Krugar sends the Rangers to Earth and stays back to find Insomnia, and you can tell he's really about it here, considering how he one-shots every monster he throws at her. He eventually makes his way to Grum, where he's able to reunite with his long-lost wife, but not before Grum reveals his true master plan. See, there have been a handful of scenes throughout the series of Grum seemingly just like rambling to himself. I kind of just wrote these off as moments meant to show the dark, twisted landscape of his mind, like some 14-year-old Tumblr shit. But in all reality, he's talking to this massive brain called Omni connected to his ship, meaning that this show coincidentally has the same plot twist as the last show we made a 2-hour video about, since Omni is the spaceship and is the true final boss of the series, which is also the reason he's been collecting materials to upgrade his form. Back on Earth, SPD headquarters sends a a group of soldiers, including Commander Birdie and Sergeant Silverback, to help out the Rangers. And we're also introduced to one of Sam's teammates from the future.
SPD Nova Ranger!
The first of 2 female Silver Rangers in the series. I like her suit a lot, with the Roman numerals M for 1000, though her helmet design isn't my favorite. It seems a little top heavy. Obviously, since she shows up in the last episode, she really doesn't do much for the series past some world building. It really is a shame that she didn't get featured in an earlier episode, because I really feel like Sam could have used a focus episode at some point after his introduction, and maybe something revolving around her would have been great for that. I should mention how it's interesting she shows up right as Sam looks like he's about to get his shit rocked, which is noteworthy because Sam comes from the future to save the B Squad Rangers from dying in his debut. So, final headcanon, was Sam about to die here? Doggie and Insomnia are still on the ship and work with Kat on a plan to sacrifice themselves in an attempt to allow the Rangers to blast a weak spot in Omni's machinery, which they're successful in doing, destroying the massive robot, dissolving it into 1,000,000 pieces. The B Squad Rangers survey the area, scared of what may have happened to their mentor, but just beyond the rubble and smoke, they find that Doggie Krugar survived, along with Insomnia. But they can't celebrate long, as Grum also made it out and challenges Doggie to a final duel. I really wasn't expecting much from this, because I can only imagine them being able to perform so many stunts with these stiff-ass suits, but it's really well done, and I kinda wish it was longer. Krugar ends up cutting off Grum's other horn and entrapping him in a containment card, marking the end of their rivalry. So, after a successful battle, Jack decides to leave SPD, and Krugar tries to promote the B Squad Rangers.
I'm promoting you to A Squad.
We are B Squad. That's who we are.
And without a red, there's no one to lead them. So Krugar requests Sky step forward and asks how he would respond to making Syd red, and says this:
I'd follow anyone into battle you felt worthy of wearing the color red.
This is peak storytelling. It doesn't even need analysis. Suddenly, a wormhole appears, allowing Sam and Nova to go back to the year 2045. And I like how they give Z a special moment to say goodbye here, where we also get to see his face before he leaves. I thought this moment was so sick as a kid watching this. There was no way to rewind the TV back in the day, so I remember just being left in awe after barely getting a glimpse of these two. In the final scene, the Rangers visit Jack at his new charity gig, specifically mentioning how while he may no longer be a Ranger, he'll still be in their lives forever.
Well, brother, guess we both get to do something bigger.
I always thought it was really cool being able to see Sky and Bridge rocking their new colors, but it also really sucks that Z and Syd don't get promotions as well, not only getting passed up here, but also in future appearances in the comics, when Sky is promoted to Commander after Doggie gets promoted to Birdie's position, now sporting his new Shadow Ranger-like form called Dekaranger. I will go on record saying that calling a suit after the name of the Sentai is not creative or cute, it's just lazy. Bridge, of course, has been promoted to red here, while Z and Syd remain as yellow and pink, respectively. Instead, Linda's Song is the Blue Ranger, who apparently is from Hyperforce or something like that. I don't know, I didn't watch that shit. And the Green Ranger is none other than JJ Oliver, Kat and Tommy's son. Meaning that instead of promoting 2 internal candidates that have given an outstanding performance in their roles, a massive corporation, SPD, would rather give the position to a Nepo baby, paying an inexperienced white man more than his female counterparts. Which is actually going to be the final entry on our list. That's points up, baby. In the last moments of the show, the Rangers get a call from Krugar and morph for the last time, implying that while there may always be threats to our peace, there will always be a team of Rangers ready to save the day, which is a far better note to end the franchise on over Coolio. I didn't even really mind that being the last line in Cosmic Fury, but this chronologically being the last scene of the show leaves things on a much better note, to be honest. With that, we have gone over all of Power Rangers SPD. Nearly 20 years later, and I still think this is one of my favorite shows in the franchise. I still think I like Dino Thunder a little more, in case you haven't seen the other 3-hour video that we did on it last year. But this is probably number 2. Krugar has to be one of the toughest Rangers of all time. John Toohey has so much screen presence with just his voice alone. Jack's arc with coming around to SPD and Sky's arc about accepting their differences is just unmatched. Bridge, Boom, and Piggy are some of the most charismatic oddballs in all of Power Rangers. Kat came in clutch countless times, both as IT and on the battlefield, making her one of the best to ever do it as well. Syd has some really great episodes in the first portion of the show, but I wish they gave her more of the spotlight in the second half, though I don't know how much more they really could have done with her character. Oddly enough, I can kind of say the same thing about Z, though I don't think she needs it as much. I feel like all of her character development is kind of done in the first 2 episodes. Outside of that, they try to tie her backstory with Sam's arc as a way to round out her character. I remember the Disney brain making a point that some characters don't need progression if they already start out as great people or where they need to be in the show. I think he was talking about Carter Grayson from Lightspeed Rescue or something. And I originally hated this idea because, like, to me, that's the whole point of storytelling, is like creating a narrative that like shows the progression and changes of something over time. To say that it's unnecessary, I feel like kind of just spits in the face of what storytelling is. But I think I'm finally starting to get his point with Z here, considering how her role in the story is to sort of act like everyone's older sister, giving them support whenever it's needed. That being said, there's no saving Sam. I have nothing interesting to say about him outside of his debut episode. He really suffers from not having an on-screen actor playing the role. You can really tell that the writers just needed an excuse to get the suit into the show, but didn't have any ideas what to do with it past that. And in the last moments of the video, let's talk about the list one final time. I know I mentioned that it was meant to be a joke, but all things considered, they didn't do half bad. Like, this could have been a lot worse. Looking at these entries, it appears that the main points being deducted here are things like the state of technology and aliens and different sci-fi aspects that they added as flavor text for the show. But looking at the positives column, overwhelmingly it should be obvious that the culture and world of SPD isn't too far off from our own. While the show may not be the perfect representation of what 2025 looks like, the lessons and societal issues that our Rangers have to deal with still ring true today, meaning that this is a story still worth telling. Thank you so much to my patrons: Andrew B, Rat Toku, Sergeant Hooked on Heroes, Daniel A, Carmelody, Soundboard, Caleb H, RJF, Progress16, Omni Ranger, Ninja Drayan, Ernesto, Thomas E, Imari V, and Will G. If you want more extra long videos about the Power Rangers, click the links on the screen.